Israel possibly being involved with Charlie Kirk. Well, I didn't call her out because I was totally fine with those questions being raised and still am. I'm sorry, but I am. I'm sick of this bullshit. I am allowed to have questions about what, if anyone, aligned with Israel or from Israel might have had to do with Charlie's death. I think it was Tyler Robinson. I think he acted either alone or with Trans-Tifa. I got an open heart to he was manipulated by somebody. I do. So I'm fine with those questions, and I'm sorry for people who don't want them asked. And then it switched to Erika Kirk and Turning Point.
What if the one piece of evidence everyone uses to prove Erika Kirk is a master manipulator was actually a lie? For months, a controversial TV segment has been seen as the ultimate proof of her cunning. We all thought she orchestrated it to control the narrative after Charlie's death. I thought it, you thought it, everyone did. But a bombshell clip from Megyn Kelly has just exposed the jaw-dropping truth.
Turning Point became the focus of Candace Owens. And honestly, Tucker, from that point forward, I worked with Turning Point and Erika regularly to say, look, Candace has the right to ask the questions she wants to ask. I'm very close with everybody there, as I know you are too. And I talk with them at length often about what's the best way of handling this, right? And I did not think it was a great idea to go out and try to combat each claim. I really thought just let her do her thing.
Erika didn't plan it. She was set up. She was ambushed by the network, walking into a trap she never saw coming. And the person they used as bait? In a move so cynical it's hard to believe, they blindsided her with the very student who asked Charlie Kirk his last tragic question. They sat a grieving widow down and surprised her with a ghost from her husband's final moments. This revelation changes everything, turning the woman everyone saw as a predator into the prey. The story just got 1,000 times crazier, and what really happened behind the scenes is more shocking than you can imagine. All right, let's get straight into it. We're going to break down this entire Megyn Kelly clip because the revelations inside are just mind-blowing, and they reframe everything we thought we knew about the power players in this saga. The whole conversation kicks off with one of the most controversial topics in this entire story, Candace Owens, and her questions about Israel's potential connection to Charlie Kirk's death. Now, Megyn makes it clear
you don't get to police her, but you also don't have to respond to every question she asks. That's just not, I wouldn't do it, and I don't suggest you do it. Sometimes they agreed with me, sometimes they didn't. But for the whole time, I was in close contact with them. And then ultimately, Erika was asking me if I would help forge a meeting with them, broker a peace of some sorts. I told her, maybe you could just email Candace and put it to bed. Maybe that's the best way instead of getting together. I don't know, or doing she wanted to do a live stream initially. She didn't want to do.
She wasn't going to police Candace's questions. And honestly, that's the most intellectually honest position to take. This is something I've talked about a lot behind the scenes. There's a huge difference between stating something as a fact and raising a question. When someone says, "I'm allowed to have questions," that is the mindset of someone genuinely seeking the truth, not someone pushing a fixed agenda. Personally, I've always been in that same headspace. My gut tells me Tyler Robinson was likely involved somehow, but my brain tells me that's too simple. The idea that he acted completely alone just doesn't sit right with the sheer complexity of everything surrounding this case. So when I hear someone say they are open to the idea that he was manipulated, that resonates with me. Because that's where the real story often lies. Not with the person who pulled the trigger, but with the person who loaded the gun, aimed it, and whispered in their ear. That's why it was so concerning when there was pushback against looking into outside involvement. Why would anyone want to limit the scope of an investigation? Unless, of course, they were afraid of what might be found. You can't just stop the story at one name. It's bigger than that. Real investigation means following every thread, no matter how uncomfortable, and asking who benefits from shutting down certain lines of inquiry. This is where having a large platform gets tricky. You have to be so careful about your sources because you realize not everyone is trying to be helpful. Sometimes, it feels like people are quietly trying to nudge you in a certain direction, feeding you information that serves their own agenda. You have to constantly ask yourself, why are they telling me this? What do they get out of it? This brings us back to the Megyn Kelly clip, where she reveals she was in the middle of this drama, acting as a go-between. she explains that Erika Kirk eventually asked her to help broker a peace meeting with Candace. Apparently, Erika's initial idea was to do a live stream to hash it all out in public. Megyn, showing her experience, advised against it, suggesting a private email might be a better way to put the fire out. It's a fascinating glimpse into the behind-the-scenes maneuvering of these public figures, trying to manage a PR crisis that was spiraling out of control. But the personal drama between Erika and Candace is just one layer of this incredibly complex onion. To truly understand the motivations and the pressure, you have to follow the money. And that's where things get really murky. I recently watched a video that broke down the financial structure of Turning Point USA, and it was eye-opening. We're talking about non-profit organizations that are pulling in tens of millions of dollars. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but the problem arises when you see how that money moves. A common pattern in these large non-profit worlds is the relationship with for-profit companies. Imagine you run a massive non-profit charity. You also happen to own a separate for-profit marketing company. The charity then hires your marketing company for a multi-million-dollar contract. Who's checking if the price is fair? Who's checking the quality of the work? When you're essentially paying yourself, accountability goes out the window. The money just circles back into your own pocket, disguised as an operational expense. It's a shell game. Now, apply that to the world of TPUSA. And then you remember that not long before his death, Charlie Kirk had announced plans for a major financial audit. An audit that would have scrutinized every dollar coming in and going out. When you see that, and then you see money moving in all sorts of directions, including, as has been reported, to organizations where Erika Kirk's own mother sits on the board, you can't help but pause. It makes you question everything. Suddenly, the motives aren't just about ideology or politics. They could be about protecting a multi-million-dollar financial empire. This is the stuff that gets glossed over in the headlines, but it's often the key to the entire story. This is why I've always been hesitant to point fingers at TPUSA directly regarding what happened to Charlie. I've never seen concrete proof linking them to it, but the financial complexities, combined with Charlie's planned audit, create a cloud of suspicion that is impossible to ignore. It's also why I have so much respect for someone like Megyn Kelly. She is absolutely fearless. She's not afraid to call out anyone, regardless of their power or influence. I swear, she has this silent black belt energy, like she's just calmly observing everything, ready to dismantle any argument with precision. She is sharp, she is bold, and she doesn't back down. On the flip side, you have Candace Owens. It's clear that when people in these clips talk about the intense pressure someone is under, they're referring to her. People are so quick to judge her actions, but they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. From what's been said, she's been through the ringer: online harassment, financial pressure, you name it. It takes an incredible amount of strength to withstand that kind of storm and still get up every day to speak your mind. You don't have to agree with her, but you have to respect her resilience. She is not someone who folds under pressure. That unstoppable drive is what makes her such a formidable figure. Even her critics have to admit, when it comes to pure determination, she's in a league of her own. She's been through rough moments, but she always comes back fighting. Now, this is where the conversation takes a sharp turn, and we start getting to the moment that completely blindsided me. Megyn Kelly starts talking about the larger media landscape, specifically about Barry Weiss taking over at CBS News. And this part is crucial because it sets the stage for the big reveal. Megyn points out the absurdity of Barry congratulating herself for selling her company for a supposed $100 million, a figure everyone knows was wildly inflated. Then she gets into Barry's qualifications, or lack thereof, to run a major news network. She argues, correctly, that there's more to broadcast news than just taking press releases and putting them on TV. There's a reason they call it broadcast. The presentation, the sensitivity, the understanding of the audience. That's just as important as the news itself. And as the ultimate proof of Barry's incompetence in this area, Megyn brings up the now infamous Erika Kirk segment. And this, right here, is where my jaw hit the floor. For months, my assumption, and I think it was a fair assumption based on what we saw, was that Erika Kirk had orchestrated that entire segment. It looked like a calculated PR move, a way for her to control the narrative, to get ahead of the story, and to present herself as a victim. It fit perfectly with the image of a master manipulator that had been built up around her. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The truth, as Megyn Kelly lays it out, is so much stranger and, frankly, so much more cynical. Erika didn't organize it. She was ambushed. According to Megyn, some executive at the network, completely out of the blue, thought it would be a brilliant idea to put this segment together. They sat Erika down, a grieving widow, and blindsided her. And who did they blindside her with? This is the part that is just unbelievably cruel. They brought in Hunter Kuk, the student who had asked Charlie Kirk that intense final question right before the tragic incident on stage. Let's just pause and think about the sheer, jaw-dropping recklessness of that decision. Someone behind the scenes said, "Hey, you know that young man who is inextricably linked to the most traumatic moment of this woman's life? Let's put him on camera with her, unannounced." It's not just a bad call. It's a move devoid of any human empathy. What's even more unbelievable is that Hunter's dad reportedly works in late-night television, so getting in touch with him was easy. And to make it even worse, they let Hunter choose the question he would ask. He apparently only agreed to do it if he could ask something designed to push Erika into saying something negative about Donald Trump. The entire setup makes zero sense. Erika Kirk's life has been intertwined with that political circle since she was a teenager. She helps run TPUSA. What possible outcome did they expect from this? Did they think she would suddenly denounce Trump on national television? It was a bizarre, tone-deaf gotcha moment that was doomed to fail from the start. It's the kind of decision that shows you how disconnected from reality some media producers have become. They're not thinking about the story or the people involved. They're thinking about creating drama, manufacturing a moment, no matter how artificial or cruel. This is exactly why self-produced independent media is exploding. People can feel the difference between something that is real and something that is a cold, robotic, and ultimately meaningless setup. It reminds me of that story about the memorial they built after the Malibu fires. A children's park meant to honor families who had survived one of the worst wildfires imaginable. And what did they fill it with? Flashing sirens and the sounds of fire trucks. Who on earth thought that would be comforting? These kids had lived through the real trauma of sirens and fire, and now they were supposed to play next to a constant reminder of it. It's the same kind of tone-deaf thinking. It's a complete failure to ask the most basic question: how will this actually make a human being feel? Instead, it's just noise and confusion packaged as creativity. When I first saw the Hunter Kuk segment, I had a very different reaction. I was critical of Erika, believing she was part of the setup, but seeing how Megyn Kelly broke it down, with the full context of the ambush, she absolutely nailed it. She called out the absurdity of the situation better than anyone could. It's not just about what happened, it's about the mindset that allowed it to happen. It's the mindset of a dying industry, where out-of-touch executives in a boardroom think they can play puppet master with real people's lives and trauma for the sake of ratings. But the audience isn't stupid. They can feel when something is inauthentic. They can sense when they are being manipulated. And they are tuning out in droves. This is why someone like Tony DeCouple, the anchor at CBS, is struggling to connect. He's trying to sound like a Fox News anchor now, claiming he's for the people and against elites, but his track record says otherwise. Megyn brings up the story of the Border Patrol agents who were falsely accused of whipping Haitian migrants. Even after the photographer who took the pictures came out and said that's not what happened, DeCouple jumped right on the bandwagon. He served up the false narrative to his guest, Jen Psaki, and let her use it to attack the Trump administration. That's not being for the people. That's being a mouthpiece for an agenda. That's the kind of inauthentic, predictable content that has driven viewers away from mainstream news. The audience has moved on. It's 2026. People don't want to be spoon-fed a narrative. They want the truth, raw and unfiltered. and they are finding it with independent creators who are free to speak their minds. The fundamental problem with mainstream media, and the reason they are losing so badly, is that they have boxed themselves in. They are trapped in a system of corporate oversight, advertiser demands, and political agendas. You could build the most beautiful multi-million-dollar studio in the world with the best cameras and lighting, but none of it matters if the person on screen isn't free to speak the truth. Because on the other side of that screen, you have someone sitting in their apartment with a cheap webcam, a strong opinion, and a direct connection to millions of people. That person is winning, not because of their production value, but because of their authenticity. They are saying the things that the audience is already thinking. There's no script, no filter, just honesty. That is the new currency, and the old networks are bankrupt. If I had to choose between reading a pre-approved script in a high-end studio for a massive paycheck, or speaking my mind freely from an old webcam with no budget, I would pick the webcam every single time. Because that's where the truth lives. That's where real connection happens. Sure, the money might look good on paper, but what's the point if you have to sell your soul for it? What's the point if you have to trade your voice for a paycheck? At a certain point, more money doesn't equal a better life. Real wealth is freedom. It's the freedom to say what you want, to live how you want, and to not owe anyone an explanation. That money from a soulless job wouldn't feel like success. It would feel like poison sitting in your bank account. This is a lesson that some people never learn. They get trapped in the chase. The next car, the next watch, the next flex. They think that external validation will fill the emptiness inside, but it never does. The truth is, when you are already known, your face is your flex. Your voice is your power. You don't need all the extra noise to prove your worth. People already know who you are. Staying grounded, maintaining your integrity, and doing what you love. That's the real win. The moment you trade your truth for a paycheck, you lose the very thing that made people listen to you in the first place. And this brings us back full circle to the Erika Kirk ambush. It was a product of this broken, inauthentic system. A system that is so desperate for moments of drama that it will stoop to ambushing a grieving widow on national television. They didn't care about her. They didn't care about the truth. They only cared about creating a spectacle. And in doing so, they revealed their own moral bankruptcy. They thought they were controlling the narrative, but all they did was expose themselves. They proved, once and for all, why people are abandoning them. The revelation that Erika was set up completely changes the context of her behavior. The woman that many, including myself, saw as a cold, calculating puppet master, was in that moment a victim. She was thrown into an impossible situation, designed to make her look bad, and she had to navigate it live on air. It doesn't absolve her of everything, but it forces us to reevaluate one of the most critical pieces of evidence against her. It shows us that the story is always more complicated than it seems, and that the narratives pushed by the media are often built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. What Megyn Kelly did by exposing this was incredibly important. She pulled back the curtain and showed us how the sausage is made. And it's ugly. It's a world where human beings are treated as props, and their trauma is exploited for ratings. It's a world that is dying, and frankly, it deserves to die. The future belongs to the independent voices, the ones who are not afraid to be real, the ones who are not for sale, the ones who understand that the most powerful thing in the world is not money or fame, but the freedom to speak the truth. This story is a perfect example of the war between old media and new media, between scripted narratives and authentic conversations. And in that war, the truth will always, eventually, win. This revelation completely changes how we have to look at this entire story. The fact that Erika Kirk was ambushed live on air shows the lengths the old media will go to create drama, even at the expense of human decency. The story is far more complex than we were led to believe. Now I have to ask you, does knowing she was set up change your opinion of her? Did the network cross a line by using her husband's final moments against her? I need to hear your thoughts on this because this is a game changer. Drop your opinions in the comments below.